Chinedu had always dreamed of uncovering something that would make history books remember his name. As a young archaeologist, he believed that the secrets of the past were hidden in the soil of Nigeria, waiting for someone brave enough to find them. That was why he came to the ancient city of Ife, the cradle of Yoruba civilization, famous for its mysterious bronze works. One hot afternoon, after days of searching, Chinedu pushed his way through thick bushes in the forest. Local villagers had told him about an abandoned shrine that no one visited anymore. They said it was cursed, but he thought it was just a story meant to scare outsiders. When he finally reached the shrine, he found broken stone walls covered with strange carvings, half buried under vines and roots. The air inside was damp and heavy, almost as if the place was still alive. In the middle of the shrine, he saw it, a bronze mask resting on a cracked wooden stand. The mask was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its face was long and oval, with deep hollow eyes that seemed to stare back at him. But what unsettled him most was the dark, reddish stains that covered its surface. At first, he thought it was rust, but as he leaned closer, he realized it looked like dried blood. A sudden chill ran down his spine. He felt as though the mask was watching him, waiting for him to reach out. Still, his excitement was stronger than his fear. He carefully lifted the mask, and for a moment, the shrine seemed to grow colder. Behind him, a bird shrieked loudly, breaking the silence. Chinedu's heart raced, but he refused to let go of the mask. He told himself this was only an artifact, a piece of history that could make him famous. What he didn't know was that by touching it, he had already awakened something ancient, something that had been sleeping in the shadows for centuries. When Chinedu returned to the village with the mask wrapped carefully in cloth, the people reacted with fear. Some gasped and quickly crossed themselves, while others turned away, whispering to each other. It was as if he had carried a deadly snake in his hands. An old woman, Mama Folake, slowly stepped forward. Her back was bent, but her eyes were sharp and full of warning. She pointed her finger at Chinedu and said, "My son, what you have taken does not belong to the living. That mask has tasted blood for many generations. It carries death." Chinedu forced a smile, trying to calm her. "Mama, it is only bronze. It is history. I will study it, clean it, and maybe even put it in a museum one day. There is nothing to fear." But Mama Folake shook her head. "You do not understand. That mask was made by a blood cult. They fed it with human sacrifices during the dark festivals. The spirits of those who died are trapped inside it. If you keep it, they will follow you. They will demand more blood." Her words made the villagers murmur louder, and a few even begged him to return the mask to the shrine. But Chinedu's pride would not let him listen. He was too excited about his discovery. "I came here to uncover history, not to believe in ghost stories," he said firmly. Mama Folake's voice softened, almost like a prayer. Child, I have seen what that mask can do. Once, long ago, a man touched it. By the next morning, his body was found drained of life, his face twisted in terror. Please take it back. Chinedu hesitated, the weight of her words pressing on him. But then he clutched the mask tighter, convincing himself it was only fear and superstition. He thanked her politely, but in his heart, he had already decided he would keep the mask no matter what. He did not notice Mama Folake's tears as she whispered, "You have awakened the dead." That evening, Chinedu stayed at a small guest house on the edge of the village. He placed the bronze mask on a table near his bed and tried to study its strange carvings under a lantern's glow. The hollow eyes seemed deeper in the flickering light, as if they were staring into his soul. As the night grew darker, the village outside became silent. Even the crickets and frogs seemed to stop their songs. Chinedu yawned and finally lay down, but sleep did not come easily. His thoughts kept returning to Mama Folake's warning. He told himself it was only superstition, yet his chest felt heavy. Sometime past midnight, he finally drifted off, only to find himself inside a terrifying dream. In the dream, he stood in the same shrine where he had discovered the mask. Around him, shadowy figures in red robes circled slowly, chanting words he could not understand. Their voices rose and fell like waves, and each time they shouted, the mask on his face grew hotter, as if it was alive. Suddenly, one of the red-robed figures stepped forward, holding a knife dripping with blood. The figure raised the blade high and whispered, "More blood for the mask." Before Chinedu could move, the knife slashed across his arm, and he woke up with a scream. He sat up in bed, his heart racing. His arm was uncut, but the bedsheet carried faint bloody handprints, as if someone had touched it while he slept. Chinedu froze, his eyes moving to the mask on the table. It had shifted slightly, now facing directly toward him. The lantern flickered violently, and in the silence, he heard whispers in Yoruba, low, broken voices repeating words he could not understand. He tried to convince himself it was only the wind, but deep down, he knew something had followed him from the shrine. And it was only the first night. By the next morning, Chinedu looked pale and restless. He told himself that the dream and the bloody handprints were only tricks of the mind. But as he stepped outside, he noticed the villagers staring at him with uneasy eyes, whispering as he passed. He tried to ignore them, though the air felt heavier around him. Later that day, strange reports began to spread through the village. A goat had been found dead near the forest, its body drained of blood. Chickens vanished from their cages without leaving a single feather behind. Some villagers claimed to see figures moving in the trees at night, tall shadows wearing red cloth over their faces. Chinedu laughed nervously when he heard these stories. Wild animals, he told himself. Just wild animals. But deep in his heart, he knew something was wrong. That night, as he studied the mask again, He felt weaker than before. His hands trembled, and his skin looked dull, almost as if his energy was slipping away. When he touched the mask, a sharp pain shot through his fingers, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw blood dripping from its bronze lips. He quickly pulled his hand back and shut his eyes. But when he opened them again, he wasn't alone. Shadows moved across the walls of the room, though there was no light to cast them. He froze, staring as ghostly figures with cloth-covered faces appeared in the corners, whispering in a language he didn't understand. One of the figures reached out a long, bony hand toward the mask. Chinedu tried to scream, but his voice caught in his throat. Then, just as suddenly, the figures vanished, leaving only the sound of the wind outside. Chinedu sat trembling in silence, realizing the truth he had been avoiding. The curse was real, and every night it was growing stronger. The next morning, Chinedu could hardly stand. His body felt weak, as though something was draining the life out of him little by little. He forced himself to eat, but every bite tasted like ashes in his mouth. Still, he could not bring himself to part with the mask. Its hollow eyes pulled at him like an unseen chain. Determined to understand, Chinedu went to the small library in the village, a place filled with dusty books and old records. He searched for any mention of the bronze mask, and after hours of turning fragile pages, he found it, a faded manuscript written decades ago by a missionary. The text described a forbidden group known as the Brotherhood of Blood, a cult that once ruled the forest of Ife. They wore red robes during their rituals and offered human lives to a sacred mask that was said to drink blood and bind souls. The cult was destroyed when warriors from neighboring villages attacked them, but according to the record, their spirits remained tied to the mask, waiting for someone to awaken them. Chinedu's hands shook as he closed the book. Every vision, every dream, every whisper he had heard now made sense. He realized the spirits of the cult had followed him because he had touched the mask, and worse, he had taken it away from its resting place. That night, as the moon rose, the whispers grew louder. His room shook as though unseen hands pounded on the walls. The mask glowed faintly in the dark, its bronze surface glistening like fresh blood. Then he saw them again, the red-robed figures from his dreams, circling his bed in silence. Their chanting grew louder, echoing the very words he had read. Chinedu clutched his head in terror as the mask seemed to pulse like a beating heart. The ritual of the dead had begun to awaken. The air grew colder as the blood moon rose high above the forest. From his window, Chinedu watched its red glow spread across the village like a wound in the sky. A deep dread settled inside him, heavier than anything he had felt before. Tonight felt different, final, as if something ancient had been waiting for this very moment. He tried to resist, locking the mask inside his travel bag, but no matter how tightly he sealed it, the whispers returned. They grew sharper, calling his name in voices that were not human. His lantern flickered, then died, leaving him in complete darkness. Suddenly, his bag began to move. The leather stretched as if something inside was alive, pushing against the fabric. Chinedu stumbled back in terror. The bag burst open, and the bronze mask floated upward, glowing under the blood moon's light. The walls of his room trembled. One by one, ghostly figures in red robes appeared, circling him slowly. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly, and their mouths moved in unison, chanting words that shook the floor. Chinedu grabbed a match and struck it, trying to set the mask on fire. But as the flames touched it, the fire died instantly, leaving not even a trace of smoke. His hands trembled as he tried again, but nothing worked. The mask remained untouched, gleaming wet as though freshly bathed in blood. The figures pressed closer, their voices now thundering. "Wear it! Wear it! Wear it!" The mask turned toward him, hovering just inches from his face. He screamed, pushing it away, but it moved on its own, relentless and alive. Chinedu realized there was no escape. The cult spirits had come for their sacrifice, and the mask would not rest until it claimed him. The final night had begun. Chinedu fell to his knees, trembling as the mask hovered before him. The whispers of the dead thundered in his ears, now so loud that his skull felt like it would split apart. The red-robed figures pressed closer, their faces hidden, but their presence suffocating. "No," he cried, grabbing the mask with both hands, trying to force it away. But the moment his skin touched the cold bronze, he felt his strength melt away. The mask clung to his fingers as if it had grown roots, pulling itself toward his face. In desperation, he screamed, "I control you. I am not afraid," and pressed it against his face, hoping he could command its power. For a brief second, everything went silent. He stood still, breathing hard, the mask covering him completely. Then the horror began. His body arched backward as the mask fused with his skin. Blood streamed from his eyes, ears, and mouth as if the mask was drinking him alive. His scream turned into a howl that shook the walls of the guest house. The red-robed spirits raised their hands, swaying in triumph, their chanting echoing through the night. Outside, villagers woke to the sound but dared not come near. They whispered prayers, knowing the curse had been awakened. When morning came, silence returned to the house. The villagers gathered cautiously at the door. Inside, there was no sign of Chinedu, only the mask lying in the center of the room. Its bronze surface was freshly wet, dripping with dark red blood that pooled beneath it. Mama Folake stood among the villagers, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "The mask has fed again. It waits for the next soul." No one dared touch it. The Blood Mask of Ife remained where it was, patient and hungry, ready for the next fool brave enough to claim it. The curse was far from over. If you enjoyed this story, don't stop here. Eyes. Check out my other horror stories for more chills and nightmares. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe now and turn on the bell so you never miss the next scary tale.